And we are live. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 6 seasons. Let's make it 7 in 2020. I don't know what's going on here. I need to make sure that my volume is good, that I'm not messing up anything here, because as you guys can tell, got rid of this mic, threw on the headset instead today, so we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, so I got to make sure that my audio sounds good real quick. But before we get started with all of that and, all the intro stuff, first off, just follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture, specifically Instagram and Twitter. I've been working up a lot of different content ideas that I want to start doing on both those platforms. I still need to remove TikTok from there because RIP, where's the water, pour one out. But yeah, this is going to be the Week 7 preview show. Unfortunately, life got in the way a bit this week, so I have been a bit behind. I've had the notes done since Thursday, but I haven't had any time to sit down and record them until today. So we got, I think it's 13 games to cover, right? We got 4 teams on bye. A game was played Thursday night between the Giants and the Eagles, so that leaves us with 13 games to get through. I'm probably going to go for probably an hour and a half or 2 hours. We'll see how fast I'm able to fly through these. Obviously, still give you guys the in-depth analysis that you guys have come to learn and love from me, and also answer some start-sit questions and any other things going on within the chat, so be sure to leave your questions down there. As far as I can tell, though, right now, the audio sounds pretty good. Let me change one setting real quick just to make sure. Let's see. So, test. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're straight. Let's go. All right, now I need to get myself out of my own ears because this is really distracting. Let's see. Okay, so we are ready to go. We hear from the start. Hugo, what's going on, my man? How can I do my intro in one take? Years of practice. So that's actually probably a conversation for a whole different video entirely, or maybe just like if I'm ever fortunate enough to be interviewed on for some whatever reason. I actually have an interview up already on the website that my friend did for his I think it was his journalism class. But basically, I've been doing this content creation thing for about a decade. So at this point, I'm good enough in front of the camera. I've done intros time and time again to where I just know what I'm supposed to say as I get rolling. But it's like, to me, the intro is the best part, right? Because if you can get a good intro and you can nail it and it's catchy and it's fun and it's exciting, that's going to hook the viewer to stay longer. So for example, Mike Malak, vlogger, also friends with Logan Paul, his intro to me is one of the best. Where it's welcome to the night shift, ladies and gentlemen, you're working late and so are we. So that's something I try and take a lot of inspiration from. And I really just spent a whole lot of time just trying to craft the intro to the way that was just that level of excitement and intrigue. And that's what I got for this so far. Obviously, always a work in progress, but I really like what I have to start. Let's see. The teams, I think we're really just going to jump right into this, in all honesty. I'm really excited to get going. We need to talk about one thing first, though. And that is... Thanks, Hugo. I appreciate that. So one thing that I really want to get into before we even start the game previews is understanding where we're at in the fantasy football season. And what I mean by that is, if you guys recall this offseason, right before the season started, I made a video explaining a way to essentially guarantee your way into the playoffs. And that was a two-factor part video. The first being you had to average 94 points per game. In various formats, that number changes, and I've talked about that within the video. In PPR, it's pretty much you need to score 112. In standard, it's 94, and then in full point PPR, it's 124. Obviously, your league format and how many players you start varies based on that. But the general number that I like to target now at this point is pretty much 100 flat. I feel like if you score 100 points every single week, if you're just in a half-point PPR format, starting one flex, one tight end, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, quarterback, defense, and kicker, 100 points by and large is going to get you there. But the other and the main piece from that, more so than how many points you score on any given week, was what your record has to be. And over the course of, I'd say, the past 5 years plus at this point now, the average playoff team secures 9 wins in order to reach the postseason. And so for me, 9-4 has always been the number I've been trying to hit. And that's why I'm such a big proponent in starting off the season early. starting off this season hot early, should I say, because if you are able to rack up those wins as early as possible, it gives you more flexibility to lose later on due to injuries or bye weeks or things of that nature, even suspensions. So as we approach this second third of this fantasy season, because the way that I break this up into chunks. Weeks 1 through 4 is section 1. I pretty much do 5 through 8 is section 2, and then 9 through 13 is section 3. But this gap in particular between weeks 7 and 11 is its own little thing because of the facts that bye weeks start piling up as well as injuries, and it really comes down to who navigates the board the best during this current moment in time. Because this is when playoff teams really start to form and take shape. You have that first set of the game. You have that first chunk of the season to start off hot. Then this middle stretch takes over, and this is where playoff teams just really emerge and cement themselves as some of the better teams in the league. So it really comes down to how well you navigate during this time. So if you're making the right waiver moves, are you starting the right players on a week in, week out basis? Can you navigate bye weeks effectively? Are you proposing trades? Are you in the position to make a trade, right? So for example, in the league where I'm 4-2 right now, I haven't made a single trade. That league in particular does not trade a whole lot. It's my home league, so it does make me a bit sad that league does not do a whole lot of trading. But I've been the king of the waiver wire pretty much all season long. Let's see. T. Higgins was off the waiver wire. DeAndre Swift was off the waiver wire. Noah Fant was off the waiver wire. T.J. Hawkinson was off the waiver wire. I've been pretty much rotating between Tannehill and Minshew as my quarterbacks, and I don't like to roster two, so I've been kind of holding, dropping, adding is essentially what I've been doing there. And then I also, what was the other one? Justin Jefferson was also waiver wire as well. So I've been dominating in that side of fantasy, and that's something that I really feel like has put me in the position to be where I'm at right now. Because if you guys recall, once I left that draft, I made a whole video saying I don't like my draft. ESPN projected me as finishing in 10th, and I knew I was better than that, but I still didn't love my team, and now they have me all the way up to second. What those projections mean, I'm honestly not sure, but to me that validates the strides that I've made with this roster so far this season. But let's get into the game notes and the game previews for Week 7. Like, we are here. It is crunch time. This is when you need to really start honing in on the playoffs and start looking at scheduling and matchups and even look a few weeks ahead. For example, I know who my Week 8 opponent is, Week 9, Week 10, and I know what their bye weeks look like. So I know for a fact I'm not playing Deshaun. I'm not facing Deshaun Watson and next week. I know I'm not facing DeAndre Hopkins the following week. So I'm really excited to see, what that looks like, because that's a way that you can kind of look ahead and see what your schedule looks like. So if you have to make any waiver wire pickups now, make a trade, or whatever the case may be for your league. There is one more thing that I want to get to. I know I've been rambling a little bit here, but these are all just thoughts that have come into my head over the course of the past week. If you're in a spot where you're 3-3 or 2-4, but I think even if you're 2-4, right, there's still a ton of time left. You can run the table. But I've been having a few people reach out to me, just with things like, hey, I'm 2-4, I'm 3-3. And I feel like I need to make a move, right? And then they show me the roster, and their roster is incredible. They have guys like Josh Jacobs. I saw one this week that came in. It was Josh Jacobs. It was Russell Wilson. It was Julio. I want to pull this up now just to be sure that I have this right. Let me see. Yeah, it's Wilson, Jacobs, Carson, Kupp, Cooks, Gronk, Higgins, and Julio as well. And I believe he's 4-2 now, or he's 3-3. But he basically reached out and was like, do I have to make a move here? Do I trade Julio? For this package? And I was going through it, and I'm like, well, the package itself wasn't bad, but then the follow-up question was, well, what's your record and how many points have you scored? And he's like, I'm number 2 in scoring, but my record is 2-4. And basically what that told me was that he just got the short end of the stick multiple times throughout the season so far. Because if your team is consistently putting up points, you are bound to win games. This happened with my best friend last year. I remember He started off his league, I think he was 1-4, eventually made the playoffs and then made it to the championship game because I told him to hold. I'm like, your team is good enough right now that things are going to turn around and you're going to rack up wins. And sure enough, that's exactly what he did. So it really is about analyzing what your team actually looks like compared to the results that took place over the course of the previous handful of weeks and figuring out if your team is actually good, actually bad, if it actually needs that one more piece, right? Just really trying to evaluate what your team looks like as a whole. Because if you have a core like that, your team is great. You just haven't had things go the right way to start the season, and that could obviously self-correct as the year progresses. Let's dive right in now to Week 7. I'm ready to go. Teams on bye this week are going to be the Ravens, Dolphins, Vikings, and Colts, so please remove those players from your lineups as well. And then obviously we had the Giants and Eagles play on Thursday night. And I'm going to be very smart about this because I had a lot of people get pissed off at me last week where I didn't timestamp the games. So all of the timestamps for each game are going to be in the description down below. Let's get started. We got the 14:55. Okay, let's dive right in. So the first game that we're going to talk about is the Cleveland Browns taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. And we had a big bomb drop yesterday, and that was Joe Mixon is not going to play in this game. He's battling an injury. I believe it's a foot injury. He did not practice Wednesday. He did not practice Thursday, and then he did not practice Friday. And as soon as he was not practicing Friday, I knew he was going to be out, so that is a big bummer. This matchup against the Browns wasn't great by any means, but as I've been saying for weeks on end, you start Joe Mixon every single chance you get. He's never going to leave my starting lineup. So the fact that I did lose a starting running back this week, it does hurt because, again, as I was saying earlier, this is time to win games right now. So Joe Mixon out, which means Gio Bernard goes up. I don't know how confident I am in Gio Bernard in this matchup. Obviously, he is the pass catcher, so he probably legitimately will not come off the field in this game. He's pretty much going to be guaranteed anywhere between 15 and 20 carries, and then obviously catch 5 or 6 passes out of the backfield as well. I like him as a fine flex play, or maybe an RB2 if you're absolutely desperate, especially with these teams on bye. Maybe a Myles Gaskin on a bye, Dalvin Cook, obviously, Jonathan Taylor. So there is room for you to start him this week if you have to. I think he'll be able to be a fine play, probably in that running back 2 range. I'd project him to finish probably around running back 16 or so. So he's pretty much that mid-tier running back 2. Fine start if you have to, especially given the current circumstances of the bye weeks, and that's just kind of what this is, right? Just really being able to understand what you're going to get from him in this matchup versus the Browns. Also important to note here that Baker Mayfield is 4-1 versus the Bengals in his career. I'm going to assume it's probably his best mark versus any team in his short career so far. He was questionable with the rib injury. Landry was also questionable with the rib injury, and so was Kareem Hunt. They were all battling rib injuries this week during practice. I expect them all to play in this game on Sunday. So, going through the start-sit questions for this week in this game, you're going to start Gio Bernard if you picked him up. He's not a guy that I'm going to... How do I put this? He's not a guy that I'm necessarily going to try and rely on, but again, he's more so just like this desperation, throw him in your lineup play if you need to, just because you know that the volume is going to be there for him, and then anything else that really happens after that, whether he gets in the end zone or not, really is just a bonus. I'm starting T. Higgins, I'm starting Tyler Boyd, and I'm starting Joe Burrow pretty much automatically at this point now. The Browns are giving up 30 fantasy points. The Browns are giving up 30 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, and we've already seen T. Higgins have a 100-yard game. We know Tyler Boyd and his chemistry with Joe Burrow, and just T. Higgins continues to ascend. We even saw some life from A.J. Green last week. So if you want to start A.J. Green, I don't hate it. It looks like that they've changed his role a bit in this offense. They were really just using A.J. Green as this possession receiver and just a guy that's moving the chains on third down, which I think is a really interesting role for an aging wide receiver. So if you want to kind of throw AJ Green into a flex spot, I won't hate it, right? But I'm just trying to figure out what his role is actually going to be going forward. Because if he is a guy that's going to get 8 targets, catch 6 for, 65 yards or so, I want to say he had 86 yards last week. then like that's not awful from your flex, because that's going to be that consistent guaranteed production that we like to talk about for your flex play every single week. Let's see. I need to cross out some of these Joe Mixon notes real quick because RIP that. I also think that Drew Sample is really interesting in this matchup. That's a tight end for the Bengals. Last time that these two teams played, and that was week 2, CJ Uzomah had, I believe it was 7 targets. And then once he went down with that Achilles injury, Sample came in and he had 9 targets. So in that game alone, the tight end position had 16 targets. And what we've known so far throughout the season, that the Browns are not great against the tight end position. So I have a feeling that they might go back to that same kind of formula. So if you need to stream a tight end for the week, Drew Sample, I think he might be a decent option for you this week. He's not going to cost you anything. Obviously, waivers already ran, but if you have daily waivers, you should be able to put a $0 bid on him and get him pretty easily, especially with the way that the tight end landscape is currently unfolding. As far as the Browns go, Austin Hooper was ruled out with an illness that is not COVID related, just a standard illness, so he will not be playing. And then honestly, Kareem Hunt is automatic. We don't need to spend too much time talking about him. But with these Browns wide receivers, right? The Bengals give up 23 fantasy points to the wide receiver position, and as I've talked about a few times now already, Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry are pure matchup dependent guys at this point, and it's not fun to say by any means because I really like Jarvis coming into the season, and then obviously Odell is just a super talented guy, but if you don't know when you can start him, that makes things obviously extremely difficult for you. Last week they had a great matchup versus Pittsburgh and then got punched in the mouth. So can you start either of these two players versus the Bengals? And history shows that you can. We saw Odell have a great game versus the Bengals earlier on this season. Jarvis, I think, played okay in that game. It wasn't anything spectacular. But I think you can start Odell in this game. I'm not as confident starting Landry. With Hooper being out, it actually gives Landry a bit of a bump up because Hooper was seeing the majority of targets that Landry probably should have been seeing. But as far as Odell goes, as I said, Baker's 4-1 versus the Bengals so far throughout his NFL career, and that's going to bode well for the Browns passing game. I feel like if this is just a team where Baker just dominates, for the next who knows how long, right? Because we don't know what the Browns are going to do with Mayfield entering this offseason and beyond. But as we know right now, Baker plays well against the Bengals, so if you want to play Odell, I can't fault you for that whatsoever. Other than that, I honestly think that's pretty much it for this game. Let's move on to the next one. But before we do that, Steven Drake's asked, need to Gurley, James Robinson, or Justin Jackson full PPR? Let's see. Going off of these, it's very simple for me. I'm going to play Gurley, and I'm going to play James Robinson. And the reason why I'm going to play those two is, one, the Detroit Lions defense is not great. And then also, I know for a fact that those two guys are going to get the ball 18 times each, and I'm going to take that volume over the possible splitting of the backfield in LA with Justin Jackson, Josh Kelly, and I believe they even just brought up a practice squad guy because Justin Jackson is battling, I think it's a quad injury. So with that, I would definitely play Gurley and Robinson. First off, those two guys never lead. If those two are my running backs, I'm never pulling them from my lineup whatsoever. Gurley's just been a touchdown machine so far this season, and James Robinson has been utterly incredible. So if those two are my guys, I'm not pulling them whatsoever from my lineup. Let's move on to the next game real quick, and that is going to be the Steelers and the Titans. Once again, I'm just writing down some timestamps real quick. So this is the battle of the undefeated teams in the AFC, and we need to talk about Juju Smith-Schuster to start things off. So you may have saw my Twitter filled rampage last week regarding Juju, and I've been a Juju Smith-Schuster dynasty owner now for about a year and a half, and it has not been fun. I can't confirm it has not been fun. And after last week's game where he caught 2 passes for 6 yards, only had 4 targets, the tilt happened. And the tilt happened not only for myself, but a ton of other people as well. I was seeing it all over the place. And I was at that point just done with Juju. This all leads to a story, a negative story, I'll say, for my fantasy experience. But we're going to keep going. As I'm tilting, it's now at this point, it's about 12:30 at night, so just past midnight. as I'm tilting, I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck happened to Juju, right? How does the guy go from 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns to dirt nothing, right? He is literally on pace for 640 yards this season. And so I'm looking up stat after stat, trying to figure things out. I'm talking to guys like Matt Harmon, who does reception perception, some other people in the industry trying to figure out what's going on, my friends who follow fantasy as close as I do. I literally talked to 8 different people on Sunday night, and none of us could figure out what the hell happened to Juju, what his value is right now going forward. We couldn't figure out any of this, right? It was literally just all over the place. At one point, me and my friend, we were playing a name game, and we went through, like, Tyler Boyd or Juju, Michael Gallup or Juju, Jameson Crowder or Juju. Like, that was how far down the line we were. Like, that is wide receiver 25 to 36 range, where we kind of narrowed him down to be. And just to give you some context here, because I really want to start pulling up the information that I had once I was making these decisions. Also, side note, you probably should never make a trade at 2:30 in the morning. More on that in just a little bit. All right, there we go. So I'm just going to read some of these to you. I did quote these on Twitter, but really just to illustrate the point as to how Juju Smith-Schuster has fallen so far. Pittsburgh has attempted 93 passes with Deontay Johnson and 93 passes without Deontay Johnson over the course of the last 3 games. Juju Smith-Schuster in that span, 14 targets, 10 catches, 77 yards, and 1 touchdown. There is now another tweet that says, Juju Smith-Schuster has 1 game over 84 yards since Antonio Brown left Pittsburgh. Not great. Not great by any means. Let's keep going. Juju Smith-Schuster is still leading the team in routes run, just a short average depth of target guy not seeing targets. And then, this goes down even further. Where should Juju be ranked in Dynasty? Wide receiver 13 through 18? Oh no, the camera stopped. Wait. Gotta pull this back up. I apologize. I forgot I had to do this thing too. Yep, there we go. Cool. So, where should Juju be ranked in Dynasty? I'm basically just going to say this right now. Juju Smith-Schuster ranked in Dynasty 14 through 24, 29%. 25 through 30, 29%. 31 plus, 28%. So as I was saying, where I talked to everybody and we had no idea where Juju's value in Dynasty was, that's what I'm saying. Like, no one has any idea. Can we keep going here? Do I have one more? Who would you rather have in a Dynasty PPR league? Robbie Anderson or Juju Smith-Schuster? How the mighty have fallen. So, I start tilting, naturally, as one does. When you have this guy who should be so great really just fall down the well in terms of fantasy value, right? I start tilting, and then ironically enough, with the person who I was playing the name game with about Juju, we eventually just got to this point where I was looking at his team, and I was like, maybe I'll make him an offer. So I offered him Juju Smith-Schuster for Preston Williams, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, and LaMichael Pirine, running back for the Jets. The way that my team is currently structured is that, one, I'm always a running back heavy, and I love my running backs. I talked about how much I love Michael Pirine coming into the pre-draft process, and I unfortunately missed out on him during the waiver wire pickups because I made a trade offer for him. He was dropped before that trade was seen, and then I didn't have the fab to go pick him up. So I was able to get a guy back who I liked in Dynasty. What his value is the rest of I know what his value is this year, but next year I think that's going to be a really interesting question depending what they do in the draft. And then also Preston Williams, who's a guy that has the potential to be a decently good wide receiver in the NFL. Ironically enough, the point differential between Juju and Preston Williams right now is currently 1.6. So that deal is literally just, I'll take on Preston Williams, and then I'll take the additional asset and LaMichael Pirine for Juju. Admittedly, I sold too low. I understand that. Like I said, I made this trade literally at 3 in the morning, and the way that conversation unfolded was absolutely mind blowing because it was just one of those things where it's like, hey, I'll just make an offer to the guy who I'm currently debating what his value is, and we got a deal done. I'm not thrilled about it, all things considered, right now because basically what happened was then Juju was flipped for Mike Williams, and then Mike Williams was then flipped for Courtland Sutton, and I realized somewhere as soon as I woke up, like, fuck, I definitely undersold Juju. Should have used the name value to try and get something back in return, but at that point I was just so tilted and I wanted to get off the roller coaster so bad I might as well just eat the loss while I can. And it's a dynasty and I'm a good manager, so I know I can make up for it in some way or form down the line. But going forward here, Juju did not practice Wednesday with a knee injury. A.J. Brown did not practice Thursday with a knee injury. He then practiced Friday. Juju should be good to go as well. And then Jonnu Smith was upgraded to a full participant with that ankle injury. There was some speculation that he might not be able to play, but it looks like that he's going to in this game. Which then brings us to the start-sit questions for this game. Per usual, you're starting Big Ben. You are going to start James Conner, and you're going to start Chase Claypool now at this point. The volume isn't as much as I would like to see it be. The volume for Claypool isn't as high as I would like it to be. He's still only getting about 4 targets a game, but those 4 targets are so damn effective, and they're also using him in a variety of different ways around the red zone as well, getting those goal line carries, which actually kind of limits what James Conner can do. So that's a conversation for another day. So I do like Claypool in this matchup. And then Deontay Johnson should be ready to go from his back injury. Let me confirm that real quick. Let's see. Deontay. Yep, he is good to go. No injury designation for him. Cool. So, let's see. What's the other note here? So, the other note that I have down here is the early data says that you should play Deontay Johnson. But honestly, I'm not going to. And the reason why I'm not going to is the same kind of philosophy that I've taken with a few other players so far this season, where I need to see it first before I'm comfortable throwing back in my lineup. Yes, I know when he was on the field, he was seeing a target share of like 25%, and that's great. Like, that really is spectacular. But we've seen Johnson get banged up so easily so far this year, where I want to just wait and see how, like, can he make it through a game? Because if he can make it through this game, I'm all in to throw him in the lineup next week. But in a matchup against the Titans specifically that have a pretty good defense, I'm not excited about throwing a guy who's coming off of injury, not only concussion, but then also back injury on back-to-back weeks. So that's my stance on Deontay Johnson for the week. But again, desperate times, desperate measures. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, and you have to throw him into your lineup either as wide receiver 2 or a flex option. And then on the other side with Tennessee, we are at the point now and where we can confidently say this. For Tennessee, we're just in the phase now of start everybody. And that's something that we were on the cusp of for a few weeks, but I feel like we're actually at that point now. And we were always playing Jonnu Smith if you've been following along with this show for a while. We were big fans of Jonnu Smith coming into the season. We loved A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill, right? As I've talked about, I started this offseason being anti-Tennessee, and the 180 that I've done on them as the year and the offseason has progressed has been quite impressive. If you guys remember, in my Titans team preview back in, that would be July, I said regression was coming. And then I suddenly started moving Derrick Henry up my draft board to the point where I was taking Derrick Henry. And then I was drafting Ryan Tannehill because he was great last season. I was saying Jonnu Smith was going to be a breakout tight end. And that A.J. Brown has the potential to be a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL at some point. So I traded for him in Dynasty. So I basically own all of the Titans right now, and life feels pretty good. I gotta be honest, because this team is just steamrolling everybody at this current point in time. So just start your Titans. Like, we are at the point where we can just say start everybody for this team, not outside of Corey Davis. But you get the point, right? You're going to start your studs, and the studs play for the Tennessee Titans. Let's move on to the next game, and that is going to be the Dallas Cowboys and the Washington football team. Where's my timestamp? 32:25. So I have no injuries to note for this game. Andy Dalton looked really bad. Monday night versus Arizona, it was not pretty. This was the bad version of Andy Dalton, and Dalton has had this history of playing pretty poorly in primetime games, so it's not too surprising. But it certainly was not a good look, especially for fantasy managers that have Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, right? These are guys where we needed to see something from Andy Dalton to give us confidence that we're able to start these players on a consistent basis week in and week out moving forward. This actually kind of damned Andy Dalton to be a long-term solution, I think, for Dak Prescott owners as well. Obviously, the cast of weapons is still there, but just seeing Andy Dalton struggle like that and play so poorly really was disheartening because we thought that we had the opportunity to get a guy here who we could just kind of slide right in. And while he wasn't going to be Dak by any means, he would still be a serviceable fantasy quarterback, and that just wasn't the case. I looked at this, and basically, with these options, at this point, you just have to take everybody down a notch, right? So for me, Michael Gallup is no longer a consistent start. I was saying previously you still had to play him just because he always had the opportunity to have that breakout game and really just cemented himself within this offense. That's no longer a thing. CeeDee Lamb, who was a great start previously, is now just a fine start at this point. And then Amari Cooper, who was a great start, then drops down to a good start, right? So it is just like these tiers of levels. Everyone just kind of takes a step downward with Dalton at the helm of this team. I have no real concerns about Zeke. Yes, this fumbling problem is super annoying, and he hasn't looked great by any means. But at the end of the day, he is Ezekiel Elliott, and he's one of the best running backs in football. And I honestly think that with the way Dalton played, they're just going to utilize Zeke even more and even further as we progress throughout the season and as this team really needs to start racking up some wins. I do also think that Dalton Schultz is going to be okay as well. Against this Washington defense that is still pretty good, I'm still probably going to start. I'm still starting Cooper. I'm still starting CD, and I'm still starting Dalton. I'm obviously going to keep Zeke within my lineup. But Michael Gallup is really just one guy who I no longer have a real interest in starting. Just seeing the way that he has unfolded throughout the course of the season and with this quarterback change, because, Dak's throwing for 450 yards, and if Andy Dalton's only throwing for 225, then at that point, obviously there's not a whole lot to go around to a third or fourth option on this team. Moving over to Washington. Washington currently, before this Thursday night game was played, Washington was a game away from being in first, and also a game away from having the number one pick in this draft, which is an absolutely wild stat, right? This NFC East is absolutely ballistically bad. I've never quite seen anything like it. You guys have seen all the memes and stuff on Instagram and Twitter. I just keep laughing at every single one of them. They are so good. I have a note here that I'm no longer starting Antonio Gibson until further notice, excluding bye weeks when I absolutely have to play him. And again, I made these notes on Thursday, and then that was the case. But then on Friday, Joe Mixon went out with an injury. So I'm back in. I am back in on the Antonio Gibson train. I'm not excited about it. I'm so frustrated, right? I was having this conversation with somebody on Twitter. He's looked so good in the snaps that he's had, and at this point, it's pretty much only 40% now at this point of the snaps that he's being played. He's getting the majority of the rushing attempts for the team, and he's consistently seeing about 5 targets out of the backfield as well. And it's just a matter of, at this point, I just think Antonio Gibson is really touchdown dependent. And this is a team that is not capable of consistently scoring touchdowns. And if that is the reality of the Washington football team, which, surprise, surprise, does not shock a whole lot of us, right? Then how can we have the confidence to start Gibson? It's just not something I have a whole lot of excitement about now, right? I love Gibson coming into the year. I still think he's a super talented running back. Again, when he's gotten the opportunity, he's looked great. But the coaching staff doesn't want to give him the full workload, right? And if you are on a bad team like he is in Washington, you need the full workload to stay consistently viable for fantasy. And after 4 straight great games, actually, of double-digit fantasy points, he then drops back-to-back 7-point performances, and that's just going to absolutely kill your team, right? Again, we are at the point in the season where we need to start winning. It is crucial to rack up wins at this juncture in time, and I don't know if you can confidently do it with Antonio Gibson in your lineup. Again, I'm playing him this week. I want to pull this up just to make sure that I don't have another option, right? So let me refresh this real quick. So my team this week, so he is my second flex option behind T. Higgins. My other options are as follows because I have Myles Gaskin on a bye. I also have Preston Williams on a bye. Remember, this is a Dynasty League where I own him. My other options are Keelan Cole versus the Chargers, something I'm actually considering. That's going to be probably a game time decision for me. I can do Ruggs versus Tampa. That's kind of it. If I want to take the flyer on Mecole Hardman, it's there. Zach Moss versus the Jets. I don't have a whole lot of options here who I'm comfortable starting right now. I know at least Gibson has the potential to score in this game. We've talked about this time and time again, where the Dallas Cowboys defense is not great by any means, so there is upside for Gibson in this matchup, and that's kind of the one reason why I'm comfortable playing him on some level. On the other side, actually moving over, not even on the other side, moving on the other side of the field, rather. Terry McLaurin, he's so good. It's been so impressive to see him continue to improve despite consistently bad quarterback play, going from Dwayne Haskins, Case Keenum, and now at this point, Kyle Allen. And I'm starting to think that McLaurin is the next Allen Robinson in that way. Is he just this perennial all-pro wide receiver who just can't get it done, not consistently, but can't get it done on a larger scale because his quarterback play holds him back so much? He's a guy that I've been interested in buying in Dynasty League specifically because I know for a fact this team is going to draft a quarterback this year, whether it is a Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, wherever the chips may fall. Because if they can get a good quarterback in there in Washington right now, and just have him develop with McLaurin, oh my God, like the sky is the ceiling for him. He is so talented, and against this Dallas Cowboys defense, you are absolutely playing Terry McLaurin in this matchup. Let's move on to the next game here, and that is going to be the Bills and the Jets. Where's my live at? There we go. So, the Bills drop 2 straight games after a 4-0 start. The Jets are the worst team in the NFL. So we are literally on the other side of the spectrum here as far as teams in the AFC East, despite the fact that Buffalo has lost 2 straight. What a gift. What a great bounce-back game. That you can, this is the best bounce back game that you can possibly get if you are the Bills right now, facing a winless Jets team. Michael Pirine played 58% of snaps last week. Again, he was a guy who I was really high on coming into the season because of the potential of Le'Veon Bell being cut by the team or being traded, whatever the case may be, because this coaching staff did not like him. They drafted Pirine in the 4th round. I had a way higher grade on him than that. Coming into Dynasty, he was my number 22 rookie in this draft class, and I was just really excited about the potential of Michael Pirine. His tape in college was spectacular. He's just a really great running back. So I was really fascinated to see what Michael Pirine would do when he got the opportunity when Le'Veon Bell was cut by this team. And for him to come out and get 58% of snaps, cool with it. Totally fine with it. He didn't get the work that I really wanted to, but he was on the field, and I really do think it was a game script thing more than anything. They got blitzed by the Dolphins last week, and you can only do so much versus them. If you are in a negative game script like that, he's not the best. He's not a great pass-catching running back by any means. So Michael Pirine, I'm not willing to cut just yet, right? And it's obviously a different conversation in redraft than in Dynasty. In redraft, you might have to, right? Just because because honestly, let's be real about this. Michael Pirine is going to be the last guy on your team. If you had to sort out all of your players into a list, Michael Pirine is probably either last or second to last in terms of fantasy value. So if you have to drop him to pick up maybe a DeAndre Swift, or you need a tight end for the week, or whatever the case may be, Travis Fulgham for whatever reason is still on your waiver wire, then cut's got to be made. But at this point right now, I want to hold Pirine for one more week, just see what happens, and see if his workload increases at all. John Brown, goosed versus Kansas City. He's clearly injured. He was ruled out for this game for Buffalo, and this offense changes when John Brown is not on the field. Yes, Stephon Diggs has come in and has been an immediate contributor for this team, but John Brown is just this super special safety blanket for Josh Allen, and without that, the Bills have shown to struggle so far throughout this season. Sam Darnold, back at practice this week. He's going to be the starter for this game. That's always good news. And Zach Moss is going to be up and active as well. He returned last week versus Kansas City, battling that turf toe injury. Moving over to some start-sit questions for the week. Actually, before we jump into that, there was a piece of news that broke just a few hours ago, and that was that second-round draft pick for the Jets, Denzel Mims, is going to be active for the first time all season. He has missed the first 6 weeks due to a hamstring injury. Denzel Mims, I'm saying this again. If you missed my Dynasty preview, show during the earlier part of this offseason, Denzel Mims is my number 2 wide receiver in this draft class. And it's not even close. It was Henry Ruggs, it was Denzel Mims, and it was Justin Jefferson, right? Now, admittedly, I'm not saying, listen, I had Justin Jefferson number 1 going into the draft. And then I came out of it, did some more research, and I moved Jefferson down to 3. But I still love him. Regardless, back to Mims. Denzel Mims is 6'3". He is 207 pounds. He is an absolute monster of a human being. He is an athletic freak. He runs a 4. What was Mims? Mims was a 4. I'm going to pull this up one more time. I want to say Mims ran a 4.27. No, that's not right. Denzel. 4.27 was Ruggs. I apologize. I misspoke there. It was a 4.3? Yes. So Mims ran a 4.38, which in terms of adjusted speed score, it's one of the best. He is just a freak athlete. He is a monster frame. He went to school at Baylor where he had a giant target share. He was seen consistently around 116 targets per season there, racking up about 65 catches. So he has been the number 1 option on a team, and he's also put up monster touchdown totals as well, 8, 8, and 12 during his senior season. So Denzel Mims is coming into this opportunity here with the Jets to really cement himself because this team truly needs a number 1 option on the outside. Jameson Crowder is actually doubtful for this game as well with a groin injury. So do not play Jameson Crowder. He is not going to play. I highly doubt that he does, especially with Brashad Perriman coming back last week, and now with the addition of Denzel Mims making his debut. I'm so excited for Mims though. I'm pretty much gonna wait and see what he does this week as far as redraft goes, but to have your second round pick in dynasty leagues for the most part, come back and finally suit up in week 7 after he's been just riding your bench or your IR spot for the first handful of weeks this season. I'm really excited to see what he does. Right, again, he plays for the Jets, so we have to limit our expectations, especially with Adam Gase at the helm. But he is a guy who has the tools to cement himself to be a great wide receiver option for this team that desperately needs one. Moving over to the start-sit questions for this game. For Buffalo, you're starting Josh Allen. You're also starting Stephon Diggs. Automatic. What you do at the running back position, it's kind of up to you, I'm going to say. Devin Singletary should be a fine play. Zach Moss, if you have to. Right, again, this Jets defense is utterly atrocious. So you got to play your guys if you can. If you're struggling for bye weeks and you need a spot start, those 2 guys should be okay, all things considered. But honestly, this Buffalo Bills backfield is a complete disaster. It's not great. It's not ideal. It's kind of in that same tier as the Detroit backfield, as the Rams backfield, as the Ravens backfield. It's so ugly. You know, we're just at this point now where every single backfield just becomes so damn complicated. And it just tanks the value. Actually, I mean, it increases the value of top-tier running backs because there are less of them. But it tanks the value of 10 different running backs in fantasy, right? And we already know that the running back position is so thin as is. So the more kinds of these running back by committees that pop up, the more brutal it is for fantasy owners to try and navigate. As far as the Jets go, I mean, shit, you're not. I mean, the only player you can possibly play in this game at this point is probably Brashad Perriman, right? He had 8 targets last week, and if Crowder's gone, Darnold's got to throw to somebody. Obviously, if this is Mims' first game, I don't expect him to be too involved. I think they're really going to ease him back and just get him into some game action because he hasn't played a snap in the NFL whatsoever. No preseason, obviously, this offseason. So I would look to play Perriman as a flex? Question mark. It's the Jets. It's like this is the point where we're at, where this team is so brutal that you just can't start anybody with confidence. Every single year we have a team like this where we're just not willing to play anybody on this team, and at this point right now it is the New York Jets. Let's see. Anthony asks, should I start David Johnson or Jamal Williams since Aaron Jones is out? That is a great question. Where do I have that on my game notes? I have that in 2 games, so we'll actually flip. I'm cool with that. Anthony, great segue. We're gonna talk about this game right now, and that is the Packers and the Texans. Where's my timestamp at? 48, 42. Okay. So, Packers and Texans. And as Anthony just mentioned, that's the big story of this game. Aaron Jones is unlikely to play due to a calf strain that he suffered in practice. The Packers are coming off an absolute smashing by Tampa Bay. They got throttled 38 unanswered points. The Texans offense is #back. They are cooking on all cylinders right now. And that Aaron Jones injury is the only injury of note for this game. So let's talk about this. With Aaron Jones out, we're now going to see Jamal Williams as well as A.J. Dillon, it looks like. And the Texans defense has been pretty susceptible to the running back position. We just saw them get absolutely slashed by Derrick Henry. Last game. Let's pull this up. The Texans are giving up 27.6 points a game to the running back position. However, the Green Bay Packers are giving up 28 points per game to the running back position. Anthony, so you have 2 great options here. So which one would I personally lean on? The answer to me simply comes off the back of what is the expected volume of each player, right? And here's how I'm going to break this down, right? So we have the Packers and the Texans who are 1 and 2 in terms of fantasy points given up to the wide receiver position. To the running back position. The difference is, in one situation, you have just David Johnson getting all the work, and then in the other, you have Jamal Williams and A.J. Dillon. So I know that if I go with A.J. Dillon, I'm only getting about 55% of the work. If I go with Jamal Williams, I'm only getting 55% of the work because I'm losing 45 to A.J. Dillon. But I could have 100% of the work in Houston and David Johnson. And if that is the case, I'm going to go with the guaranteed opportunity and the guaranteed workload of David Johnson in this matchup. It should be a high-scoring game. I believe it has one of the highest over-unders on the week. And David Johnson has been absolutely great for you so far this season, giving you consistent numbers week in and week out. It's been anywhere from about 18 touches, 65 yards, and the score. And that's something that he should easily do. Jamal Williams can put up that stat line as well, but I do think that David Johnson has a bit of a higher ceiling in this matchup because he is going to get all of the work for his team instead of half of it that Jamal Williams is going to get. Let's keep going here for some more start sets. This is a game where we're starting everybody, in all honesty. Rodgers is up. Devontae Adams is up. Tanyan is up. Houston. Deshaun's up. David Johnson's up. Will Fuller is up. Brandon Cooks is up. Brandon Cooks has been spectacular. Ever since Bill O'Brien got fired, is being involved in the offense. He's getting tons of yards, getting into the end zone. He's playing extremely well, so you highly have to consider starting him, right? Starting Brandon Cooks never feels great, but over the course of the past few weeks and the way that this offense is really starting to get into a roll and into a rhythm, he is a guy that you strongly have to consider putting into your lineup, even if it is just a flex play in this matchup versus the Packers. Is there anything else here? I've already apologized to Will Fuller enough. Robert Tanyan, Tanyan, I forgot his new name is Tanyan, not Tanyan. That's gonna take a bit getting used to, but for him, I'm still going to it. Last week was just really awkward because the Packers came out of the gates firing and then got blown out after that pick six was thrown. So he never really had the full opportunity to cement himself as part of last week's game plan because none of the Packers did, right? So I'm willing to go back and start Robert Tanyan as this season continues to progress, and I really want to just take that approach where he's been great so far. So we'll keep rolling with it until he proves us wrong otherwise. Let's move on to the next game now, because this game, as I said, was pretty cut and dry. You're starting as many of these players as you possibly can. Our next game is going to be the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. Where's my timestamp here? 53:10. Okay. I need to confirm something real quick. So, truth be told, again, give me a sec. There we go. That's what I thought. So, last night, as I said, this week just completely got away from me. And just to give you an idea of how exhausted I was from this week, I passed out last night at 7:30, woke up at 4:30, then took another 3-hour nap earlier on today. So I missed the fact that Emmanuel Sanders tested positive for COVID-19. He is going to be out for this game versus the Panthers. Also, Michael Thomas is going to be out for this game, now battling a hamstring injury after trying to return from that high ankle sprain. It's not looking good for the Saints right now. And also, Carolina's pass defense has been utterly spectacular this season, somehow, some way. This was a defense that I and a ton of people did not expect to be good. And while the run defense certainly is not good, their pass defense has been great so far. So we have to give credit where it's due. But also, on the other side of that, with the Saints, this Saints defense is not what it used to be. So they're actually highly susceptible to the passing game. And that brings us to the start-sit questions for the week, right? In Carolina, you're starting Mike Davis. We still have no update on Christian McCaffrey. So you're starting Mike Davis. You are going to start Robbie Anderson, and you're going to start DJ Moore. And by association, you can probably start Teddy Bridgewater in this matchup as well. The DJ Moore bounce back is real. It's happening. I've been trying to tell you guys need to stay calm and hold on DJ Moore, because it is here. DJ Moore, the past 2 games, has had 93 receiving yards in both games, and he's also gotten into the end zone, seeing targets of 5 and 11. That 11 one being the big factor for me. As long as the targets continue to be there for DJ Moore, he has the opportunity to take a slant pass 60 yards and either get out of bounds or make his way into the end zone. He's not a big touchdown guy, but he is a yardage specialist. He very much reminds me of kind of Julio Jones in that way, where he's just a guy that's going to get a lot of receiving work, rack up yardage, but not finish off plays when it matters. So I'm totally cool with starting DJ Moore in this matchup. The Saints are giving up 23 fantasy points to quarterback. So again, that's what I was saying. Bridgewater should be a fine start for you this week if you are streaming. And then for the Saints, honestly, Alvin Kamara, who I unfortunately am facing in Dynasty, he might have 250 total yards and 3 touchdowns. With no Emmanuel Sanders and no Michael Thomas, they are going to ride Kamara into the ground, especially given the fact of how bad this Carolina Panthers run defense has been, getting absolutely slaughtered by essentially everybody besides Kenyon Drake this season. And then, since Sanders and Thomas are not playing, that makes Traequan Smith a pretty good start as the number 1 option for this team. Jared Cook is also a strong play as well, because Drew Brees has to throw the ball to somebody. Again, as I said, this Carolina Panthers pass defense, it has been very, very good to start the season, and I do expect him to, at this point, continue that, because there has been no signs of them slowing down. But if Drew Brees has to throw the ball to somebody, and it can't just be 16 dump-off passes to Alvin Kamara, but hey, it might be, right? I would consider playing Traequan Smith in this matchup. I think he makes a great flex option. This is something that we don't get a whole lot of, right? Where a guy in a great offense, that is the Saints, is the number 1 option for them, and he's just kind of chilling on waiver wires right now, to where you don't have to start him as your wide receiver 1 or 2. You can literally throw him into your flex, and he should be able to easily surpass 80 receiving yards this game, and there's obviously touchdown potential with that Saints offense. Is there anything else here? Nope. We are good. Another short one, not a whole lot to add for this game, because we know who we're starting in this matchup. Let's keep going here. And let's go down to Detroit and Atlanta. Where's my 57, 34? Cool. The Falcons. Last week they got a win. Actually, before I even do this, Before I even do this, your man needs water. He's been talking for an hour now at this point. All right. Detroit and Atlanta. Let's talk. The Falcons get their first win of the season after firing Coach Dan Quinn. That was so obvious in the game versus the Vikings. Unfortunately, I didn't take them in eliminator. Probably should have, all things considered. Julio Jones is back. Balled out last week versus that awful, terrible, disgusting Minnesota defense. He had, I believe it was 157 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He was spectacular. Calvin Ridley did his thing as well. And is it Deandre Swift's season in Detroit, who saw, I believe it was 55% of the snaps? Let me make sure of that. Swift. I know he had 14 carries. I want to make sure the snap percent. Yeah, actually, that was the crazy thing about this game. So, DeAndre Swift only had 38% of the team snap, but he saw 14 carries for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I don't understand how that math actually checks out to where he literally just every time he was on the field, he was involved in that play. I'm really trying to figure out what to make of those numbers because it doesn't make sense for a guy to get that much work in that little amount of snaps. So I'm trying to decide if it actually is DeAndre Swift's season in Detroit, but that really is an encouraging sign, especially coming off the bye where they do make that switch to get Swift more involved. If you are in redraft, you have to see if he is on your waiver wire because he could be the definition of a league winner as we approach the stretch of this season. And lastly, there are no other injuries to note for this game. Everyone is healthy, everyone is up, and everyone is active. And this brings me I didn't do this for Packers and Texans. I probably should have, but I get to do this instead for the Lions and Falcons. I gotta clear my throat real quick. For your Detroit Lions versus the Atlanta Falcons, start everybody. Start everybody. For your Atlanta Falcons against your Detroit Lions, start everybody. Start them all. Just do it. Trust me, start everybody. In Detroit, you are starting Adrian Peterson if you have him. You are starting DeAndre Swift if you have him. You are starting Kenny Golladay. You are starting TJ Hawkinson. You might even be able to start Marvin Jones in this game. Why? Because Atlanta, this defense is so disgusting, so terrible, so atrocious that it is being dominated by every single quarterback that it faces. And by association, that means that everybody else in this offense is going to have a great game as a result. They are giving up top 10 performances every single week. We saw Kirk Cousins start off last week with back-to-back interceptions and a fumble, and it resulted in 27 fantasy points for him by the end of the game. It was spectacular. It was so great because if you started Kirk Cousins, you're starting off like, oh no. And by the end, you were like, woo, that turned out pretty great. So you are absolutely starting all of your Detroit Lions in this game. And then for Atlanta, just because, again, this defense is so bad, their offense has to be the one that wins the games. You're starting Matt Ryan, you're starting Gurley, you're starting Julio, you're starting Ridley, and you're starting Hayden Hurst if you still got him. Because this Detroit defense still is not great either. So this is the perfect storm of the over that can smash. We legitimately might get a 70-point over-under game in this matchup, and I'm really excited about that for fantasy purposes. You guys already know how I feel about the Atlanta Falcons, and that is if you got them, you start them every single week, and you start all of your opponents against them as well. Let's keep going here. How many more games do we got to cover? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow, we still got a lot of these. All right, that's fine. We got all day. Let's go 102. Okay. Oh, I need to 102.16. All right, Bucs and Raiders. This game is a bit awkward, and the reason why it was a bit awkward because there was a lot of speculation that the Raiders may not have their starting offensive line because Trent Brown tested positive for COVID. Not unfortunately. Fortunately, they were all cleared, so the Raiders should have their offensive line for this game because that really was going to beg the question of how many Raiders can you actually start knowing that they're going to have their second and third string offensive line playing in this game. Also, I mean, shit, as much as we need it, fuck COVID. We got bigger things to talk about here because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed. Has it been official? Is it official? Can I verify this? Antonio Brown, because I don't know if the. Yes, it is. It is not official yet, but Antonio Brown was set to meet with the Buccaneers later today. It's pretty much a done deal. It seems like it's an incentive-based contract for Brown, and Brown is going to be picked up by Tampa. He's going to be reunited with Tom Brady. And what does this mean for fantasy? Because we need to talk about this. Simply put, it brings Mike Evans and Chris Godwin down. It's going to raise Tom Brady up, and it's obviously going to give Antonio Brown some sort of fantasy value that he had not had previously because he was not on a team. But in redraft, you have to add Antonio Brown to your roster. You have to find a way. I did it. I sprinted to the waiver wire to try and find him. I was able to pick him up. And the reason why is because last time we saw Antonio Brown with Tom Brady in his first game and the only game that he played, he saw, I believe it was 8 targets, caught 4 of them for 57 yards and a touchdown. He finished the game with, I believe it was 15 fantasy points. He was spectacular, and Antonio Brown is just one of the best wide receivers of all time. And last time we saw him on the field, he was great. And I'm not saying he's going to have a big role by any means or any stretch of the imagination because he probably isn't. But if he can work his way onto the field consistently, which he should because he's Antonio fucking Brown, then you have to take that chance on this offense, right? This is not something that you can just kind of put your feet up and let this opportunity pass you by because he is a great player on a great team who should be able to get some level of opportunity here to where he should be fantasy viable at some point. And that's something that I would just love to have as my ace in the hole on my bench in spot 15 or 16, right? So I'm going to take the opportunity to sign Antonio Brown pretty much as soon as I possibly can. Let's see. There are no other injuries to note for this game, which is nice. And also this game was moved from Sunday night to 4:30. Just in case the Raiders had to cancel the game due to those COVID concerns, but it looks like we are all clear from that. All right, let's move on to the start set for this game. Honestly, you're starting Josh Jacobs and you're starting Darren Waller for the Raiders, and that's pretty much it. We saw Henry Ruggs do great things 2 weeks ago. Last week they had their bye. He had 2 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown. But this brings me to the main issue that I have with Henry Ruggs as a guy who absolutely adores him, and that is that the full opportunity isn't there for him. And what I mean by that is that he's still only going to get around 3 to 4 targets a game, and I just need that number to be higher, right? If I don't have the ability to consistently rely on you, and I don't want to take that dart throw that's pretty much now at this point going to be touchdown or bust, I don't feel it's simply not a game that I'm willing to play at this point in the season. Again, bye weeks are a different story where if you have to play him, you have to play him. But I'm not excited about playing Henry Ruggs in this matchup, especially with this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and their secondary being so damn good this season. Waller should be fine. Jacobs should be fine. I'm all in on them. And then with Tampa Bay, Brady, you're in. Evans, you're in. Godwin, you're in. Gronk at this point, you're in. Gronk is seeing a lot of increased work, so I'm really excited about what he does the rest of the season. Just a guy that I'm keeping my eye on in the pinch where I have to pick up a tight end and start him. But the big story that I need to talk about here is that it is Ronald Jones' season. Ronald Jones has had 3 straight games of 100-plus rushing yards, and yes, Leonard Fournette has not been active in those games. I don't care. Ronald Jones has looked spectacular so far this season. And this was something I was saying coming into the year, where everything that happened last year, splitting those reps with Peyton Barber, it was all useless, right? But the thing that really did stand out was that Ronald Jones, when given the opportunity, has performed. He honestly has. And if this offense moved in the way that we were expecting it to, where they were going to hang points up on the board, Ronald Jones and any running back in this situation has to have some level of value as a result. And that is exactly what has happened this season. So if you took that shot on Ronald Jones in the 7th round of your fantasy draft, it has paid off for you in spades. I'm all in on Ronald Jones rest of season at this point. I don't think Leonard Fournette is going to be a major contributor. Jones is getting the work. He's getting the work, getting the red zone, the red zone and the goal line work as well. He's basically just seeing the ball on all levels of the field, and he has been great for your fantasy team. And last but not least, obviously, start all of your running backs against the Raiders because they are giving up, where is it here? They are giving up 26.6 fantasy points to the running back position, 3rd worst in the NFL. I honestly think that's all I got about that for this game. Like, this pretty easy. Pretty cut and dry. All right, let's keep going here. Next game. Ooh. Oh, this is not fun. Where's my 109? Okay. The San Francisco 49ers taking on the New England Patriots in Foxborough. And oh boy, we got some things to talk about here. First off, Deebo Samuel is back. I want to start this off on a positive note. Deebo Samuel is back, coming off of that Jones fracture. The workload went from 33% to 84%. He's looked great. He's getting highly targeted, getting in the end zone, finding ways to just be effectively and creatively used. Obviously, that's one of his big purposes, that have been that Swiss Army knife of a wide receiver. And just to see him perform like this is truly spectacular, because not a whole lot of players perform this well coming off of the injury that he has. So to see him come back and just go from 0 to 100 and contribute immediately is so dope. Again, I said we start off positive. That means we bring it down to negative. Raheem Mostert is out with a high ankle sprain. It's very similar to the Christian McCaffrey injury, where it looked like that he tried to play through it, just couldn't give it a go. We thought he would be okay, and he just wasn't. So he's going to be out for an extended period of time. He was placed on IR. Looks like it can be anywhere between a 3 and 5 week injury. We'll wait to see the official report and the official word on that as it progresses. But he was placed on IR, so he is guaranteed to miss at least 3 games this upcoming stretch. So he'll miss this week, next week, the week after, and I don't know when their bye week is, and I don't know if the bye weeks count towards IR. I believe that they do. And then finally, on the other side of the ball here, New England, this offense just looks really damn bad. They aren't moving the ball well. Cam's doing the best that he can, but Cam is also now realizing the reason why Tom Brady left New England. It was just they don't have the weapons. They don't have the guys who can consistently contribute at a high level, and that's just going to be something that holds this offense back. So, I'm looking at my notes here, and it's so sad because every other game has like 5 or 6 notes, and this one is just so bland and so boring. It has like 2. So for the start sits for this game, I'm looking at. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. For New England, you're playing Cam Newton based upon rushing, and that's pretty much it. He's thrown basically 175 yards, I think it is. Let me verify that. Newton. Yes. 162 and 157 in back-to-back games. He's only had 1 game above 175 yards, and that was week 2 versus Seattle, where he threw for 397. It has not been great for Cam Newton. But the reason why we love Cam is because of the fact that the rushing upside is there and it is so high. So you look at the rushing total: 75 yards, 47 yards, 27, 76, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown, and there is no running game in New England as well. It is all over the place there. So I'm starting Cam Newton based on rushing upside. In fact, I'm starting him this week in Dynasty because Lamar Jackson is on a bye, but I'm not excited to start anybody else from the Patriots this week. As far as San Francisco goes, I think Jerick McKinnon you can throw back into your lineup. Again, he performed the best when Raheem Mostert was out, and we get that same scenario again, even though this Patriots defense is pretty good. There is going to be a valuable running back here in San Francisco because their offense is predicated based around the run. You're obviously still going to start George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel is a great flex option because I'm assuming he's not your wide receiver 2 at this point. And so if that is your flex option every single week, that's a pretty damn good one to have, all things considered. I'm trying to figure out if I want to lean back. Can I lean back? I like having the headset on because no matter where I go, the mic always follows me as opposed to the one that I got up here. God, honestly, that's it for this game. It's ugly. It's ugly. This is just one of those games where I'm not excited to have any player really be a part of it. But we have 4 more games to get to. And the yawns are coming. Oh boy, that's not good. One more time before another drink. All right, let's roll. Where are we at? 1:15. The Jacksonville Jaguars. Whoa, what is happening here? There we go. The Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. This is the battle of 2 mid or bad teams. The Jags, we thought they would be. They showed a lot of promise early on in the season, and that quickly all fell apart. The Chargers, I think, are a lot better than people expected them to be. Just the way that Justin Herbert has come out and played has been truly, truly spectacular. He was a player that a lot of scouts and just people in the industry doubted. So to see him come out and play this well has been so cool because we rarely get this kind of thing. And he really has just proved a lot of people wrong and has been just utterly spectacular and amazing so far during his rookie season in the NFL. The only injury note that I need to make you guys aware of in this game, Thank you. So I need to verify this. So Justin Jackson was listed as questionable with a knee injury. He practiced fully Friday, so I do expect him to play, but they did elevate a running back off the practice squad, so that is just something to monitor. Your start sits for this week in Jacksonville. Listen, you can continue to start Gardner Minshew every single week simply because of the fact that the passing volume is always going to be there. So I'm in on Minshew again this week. James Robinson I'm in on. Keelan Cole I'm in on. And Gigi Chark I'm also in on. The reason why I listed Keelan Cole first is because he has outscored Chark in 4 out of 5 games. And he is a guy that is not getting a lot of respect or being talked a lot about in fantasy. Keelan Cole is wide receiver 29 right now, right? Last time I checked, he was 29. He may have jumped up. Let me, again, do some verification over here. Yeah, he's wide receiver 21 in fantasy right now. In PPR formats, he's wide receiver 20 in standard scoring. Keelan Cole is just a guy that you can start every single week. He's never going to hurt you. I was asked today, or was it yesterday? I was asked Julian Edelman or Keelan Cole, and the answer was Keelan Cole easily. 1, I don't trust Julian Edelman, and number 2, Keelan Cole is never going to hurt you. He's only going to help you. So I'm all in on Keelan Cole at this point. If you're in Dynasty, I don't know what his long-term value is going to be. That's a conversation for another day. But I'm pretty confident in Keelan Cole on a week-in, week-out basis, especially as a flex option. Don't love him as your number 2, but more so as a flex more than anything. But if you got to, again, desperate times, desperate measures. I'm still in on DJ Chark. Just things aren't adding up for me in that way, though. Like, how is this a guy who played so well last year and now is just underperforming this year when he should be really cementing himself as the number 1 option here? I'm still holding. I'm not going to cut him by any means. I have him in a league, in a redraft league. I'm just trying to figure. I'm rolling. I am riding the wave because I know that things are going to turn around for him eventually. Moving over to the Chargers now. Herbert is up. Williams, Allen, Henry, Justin Jackson over Josh Kelly, and the reason why you're going to play all those players is because the Jacksonville Jaguars defense is terrible, and they're going to give up fantasy points to every single position. This is Justin Herbert should honestly finish with 350 passing yards in this game. Mike Williams should be able to find his way into the end zone or at least catch one deep bomb. Keenan Allen has been a target machine. Hunter Henry's been fine for your team. You're going to keep starting all those players. This is a great matchup against the Jaguars. And then really just breaking down that running back decision real quick. Josh Kelly, since week 1 and 2, has not looked great whatsoever. He's not getting the work that he was. He's not being productive in any way, shape, or form. He's not being a difference. I dropped Josh Kelly this week in order to pick up Deandre Swift. It's just what it did. I don't really know what happened, but it clearly shows, especially last week, that this team values Justin Jackson and what he can do in this offense more than Josh Kelly. So I'm going to play Josh Kelly over I'm going to play Justin Jackson over Josh Kelly because I know what Jackson's role on this team is going to be. And as I've said time and time again, I'm more inclined to take the guaranteed production than kind of take that dart throw and that flyer for my starting lineup unless I absolutely have to do it. Let's go over to one of our last games. We're down to the final 3 now, and this is obviously a fun one to talk about. And that is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos. All right, let's roll. The Chiefs, their first game with Le'Veon Bell. And what does that mean for Clyde Edwards-Helaire? We'll talk about in just a little bit. Kansas City is still #very good. This offense just continues to cook. No injuries for either team to note. Noah Fant is back after that ankle injury, so that is great for the tight end landscape. And that brings us to the start to questions for this game. Pretty simple, all things considered. Kansas City, you're going to start the usual, and that is you're going to start Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and what do you do with Le'Veon Bell? Well, very, very simple. I'm going to wait on Bell this week. And the reason why I'm going to wait on Bell this week is because I have some level of speculation as to what he is going to be in this offense. And that is a guy, who is going to see about 30 to 35% of the snaps, coming on goal line work, coming on third down. And what that equates to, in all honesty, I'm not sure. But that's essentially where I see him, and I'm not going to tank a roster spot in this week where I probably need a win, right? Again, we're approaching this time where we need to get wins in fantasy. I'm not going to take the risk and set that roster spot on fire. I just won't do it. As far as Clyde goes, I know that he's still probably going to get 15 touches in this game. So I'm perfectly fine with still playing Clyde Edwards-Helaire in this matchup. He's probably going to see some receiving work as well. So that's the big thing for me, is I'm going to continue to take the guaranteed production, or at least some level of it. Obviously, it's going to be a step or two down what it once was, but I'm still going to play Clyde in this matchup, and I'm going to sit Le'Veon. With Denver, let's see, I want to make sure of one more thing before I make this. Again, I made my notes a few days ago and things have changed. Yep. Cool. Alright, so for Denver, I'm going to play Melvin Gordon, who's back from a strep throat. Noah Fant is up and in your lineup, and I'm going to play Tim Patrick as well. And the reason why I bring up Tim Patrick instead of Jerry Jeudy is that Jeudy hasn't produced in the way that we would have liked to see with Courtland Sutton being injured. But Tim Patrick has, and Tim Patrick is actually a better physical representation of Courtland Sutton than Jerry Jeudy. Tim Patrick, I believe, is like 6'2", 6'3", is just a monster freak athlete, and he's seeing some of the same target volume that Courtland Sutton saw. And so just the comparison for him has been so easy to make, and there is some familiarity with him and Drew Lock for whatever reason. Maybe Tim Patrick just dresses up like Courtland Sutton for Halloween, and that's how he's able to see so many targets and get the work that Sutton did. So I'm really excited to play Tim Patrick in this matchup as a flex option. I think he's a great option for you in that way, especially because, as we said time and time again with the Chiefs, if you want to beat them, you have to put up 35 points too. And how do you do that? Yeah, you got to score. You got to score. So I'm in on Gordon, in on Fant, in on Patrick. Jerry Jeudy if you have to. Not excited about it no longer at this point. He's not a guy who I'm really considering starting anytime soon. He's kind of been downgraded and demoted to my bench going forward. But we have 2 more games to quickly get through, and we're going to start off with the new Sunday night football game, and that is the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks in Arizona. There are no injuries to note for this game. Both teams are very, very good. Kyler Murray not really getting it done through the air, doing the majority of his damage on the ground. It's actually bizarre when you look at the numbers and the things that he's been doing. A lot of his fantasy production has really been coming off of the ground game so far. Kenyon Drake finally had the breakout game last week versus Dallas. That was great to see. So if you want to try and sell him high before kickoff in this game, by all means, go ahead and do so. As a Kenyon Drake stan, first off, I loved it. Secondly, it gave me another reason to hold him. So I'm pretty happy in that respect because he did everything that I expected him to do. And that was, 1, he was going to feast on the ground. But then number 2, like, the volume is still there. And that's something that you just can't continue to argue against. If you're getting the ball 18 times a game, you always have the opportunity to do something with it on every single touch. Every single carry, you have the potential to either rip off a big run or find your way into the end zone. And this is the team that has given him the ball in the goal line time and time again. Which leads me to the start sits for this game. Pretty easy for me, all things considered, and that is very simply, what do we say? Start everybody. You're starting Russ, you're starting Chris Carson, you're starting Lockett, you're starting DK, you're starting Kyler, you're starting Kenyon Drake, you're starting DeAndre Hopkins, you're starting Christian Kirk. Why? Because both of these teams give up fantasy points, specifically the Seahawks, right? We've talked about this time and time again. The Seahawks give up 30 points per game to the wide receiver position, which then equates to fantasy points given up to the quarterback. Their run defense still is not great as well. And then with the Seahawks, you're just going to start everybody because their offense is unstoppable at this current moment of time. Between Chris Carson, Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, you have no excuse or rhyme or reason to sit anybody. So this Sunday night game, I'm looking forward to it a ton. In fact, in my Dynasty League, I have Chris Carson. I have Kenyon Drake. My opponent is starting Russell Wilson. Is he starting anybody else in this game? Nope. So we got 3 players going in this Sunday night affair. All things considered, it's going to be really, really exciting for me on Sunday evening and just watching the slugfest take place between these 2 teams in one of the best divisions in football. Not a whole lot needs to be said here as well. I think, let's see, I've just made my timestamp at 23:06. It's currently 1:25:48 as I finish up this game. So easy to talk about. I love games like this. I just say start everybody, and then we get to move on with our day. But then here comes the Monday night game. 126:05. Our last game for this live stream is going to be the Chicago Bears taking on the LA Rams in LA. Monday Night Football. Let's talk about this. So the Bears, they're winning games. They are winning games somehow, some way. It's actually been quite impressive, all things considered. With this offense, though, I still have a ton of concerns. The quarterback play still has not been great. Whew. Excuse me, my goodness. I need to figure out what is going on here, because I've been yawning in some of these game previews and recaps pretty consistently. I think I need to start recording a bit earlier in the day, but I digress. The Bears continue to win games somehow, some way, despite their terrible offense. Allen Robinson is currently wide receiver. Last time I checked, he was wide receiver 15 in standard. Let me see where he's at in PPR leaders. Wide receiver. Season. So Allen Robinson is currently wide receiver 12 in PPR formats. He's been still up and down. It's the Allen Robinson experience. This is actually a game where I have to sit him. And the reason why I'm going to sit him is just because I just love this Rams secondary too much. I know Jalen Ramsey's probably going to shadow him. And if Jalen Ramsey is shadowing you, it's never really a good thing. So I'm sitting Allen Robinson this week. I'm playing T. Higgins over him instead, and it's honestly just a personal thing. Based upon my matchup, I don't feel like I need Allen Robinson in any way, shape, or form. I should be able to comfortably secure the win. And so with that being said, I'm pretty confident just being able to make that move to T. Higgins, and I don't think it's going to hurt me in any way. I want to talk about David Montgomery, who has not been good so far this season. I truly can't believe it. I want to pull up his numbers just to have them in front of me. Let's see here. David. No? Oh, I'm in. Alrighty. So, Montgomery, so far this season. Luckily, back-to-back games and double-digit fantasy points, but that's not my point. The point is, he has been being used not only on the ground, but also through the air as well, and he is just struggling to get anything done. Yards per carry, 3.2, 2.7, 2.9, 3.1. It has been brutal for him. And he was a guy who I was really excited coming into the season because I figured there was no way in hell he could repeat what he did last year, the inefficiency that he had last year as a rookie. And sure enough, somehow, some way, he is being as, if not more, inefficient than he was last season. And honestly, I was already starting to do some dynasty stuff for next year, trying to figure out what each team needs. And the Bears need another running back because he is not it. And I think it's so weird to say that because how often do we see running backs hit in the 4th, 5th, 6th round even where we find just running backs that grow on trees and a guy who was taken so highly in the draft just bust, right? Like we aren't used to seeing running backs that bust, and here we are with David Montgomery and the Chicago Bears right now. So I do have a lot of concerns for him going forward. At this point, I'm probably only starting him if I absolutely have to. But let's move on to the start-sit questions for this game. There was a brief injury scare as far as Daryl Henderson and Robert Woods go. They're good to go. They've just missed practice on Thursday. They were back at it again today on Saturday. And their game obviously being Monday night buys them an extra day of rest, and they're able to get a little bit healthier than they were coming into the week. But with the Bears specifically, I'm not excited to start David Montgomery. If you got to, you got to. I get it. Desperate times, desperate measures. Allen Robinson is likely in your lineup. Again, the only reason why I'm not playing him is because I know for a fact I have a better option than him. Robinson has been pretty good so far this season, but even then, right, Allen Robinson can only be as so good as Allen Robinson makes himself, because if he isn't, how do I put the right? It's so dumb because Allen Robinson, I've talked about this so many times. Allen Robinson is my favorite wide receiver in the NFL. It's honestly not even close. But he can't make his... No, he can make his quarterback better. Because, like, that's the thing. His quarterbacks lives off of Allen Robinson. But Allen Robinson can only do so much if the ball is being thrown 5 yards above his head, 2 yards to the left, 7 yards to the right. He has to make his own plays. And if you're a wide receiver, I don't know if you know this or not, that's hard to do if the ball is being thrown in 45 different directions. So I'm not excited about Allen Robinson necessarily in this matchup. Again, play him if you have to. I don't anticipate you pulling him from your lineup. I'm just meh. I'm frustrated. I'm a frustrated Allen Robinson fan, okay? But then moving over to the Rams real quick before we wrap this up. Cooper Kupp is in your lineup. Robert Woods is in your lineup. I know a lot of people have been concerned about Cooper Kupp. I'm not. Doesn't make any sense. Targets are still there. Snap percentage is still there. He's still seeing the same work. Just isn't really finding his way into the end zone. I have no real concerns about him going forward. Daryl Henderson is so far the guy in Los Angeles, so you have to play him. You can't play David Akers, and you can't David Akers. Oh my God, you can't play Cam Akers, and you can't play Malcolm Brown. There's no use in trying to do so. It's not going to be a fun game for you to play. So I'm all in on starting Daryl Henderson. And then the last thing is Tyler Higby. I want to pull this up one more time. Tyler Higby, who has been disappointing, right? Shocking. The entire tight end landscape coming into this offseason, or coming into this year, was so hyped up. I gassed the fuck out of the tight end position this year, and we've been disappointed pretty much time and time again now at this point. He did have a bit of a bounce back. Like, what do we consider to be a good game for tight ends? I'm honestly trying to figure this out, right? Because if you aren't Mark Andrews, if you aren't George Kittle, if you aren't Travis Kelce, what is a good game? Is it 4 catches and 60 yards? Like that right there would give you 8 points in half-point formats. Like, what is going to be a serviceable number for the tight end position? Honestly, with the way that things have gone down for Tyler Higby so far this season, I want to pull this up just to see where they're at. The Bears are giving up 7.8 points per game to the tight end position. I mean, listen, if Tyler Higby's your tight end, he's probably your tight end. I would actually look to see if TJ Hawkinson is available on waivers, who has a great matchup versus the Falcons. If Noah Fant was dropped on your waivers, go check that out, because I would rather have Fant. Let's pull this up one more time. Who are some other? Let's see. I mean, shit. The tight end position is just a barren wasteland right now, especially with the teams on bye weeks this week, like the Dolphins with Mike Gesicki. Mark Andrews is on a bye. It's rough sledding. So look, start Higby if you can, but I don't know what kind of expectations you can properly give to him in this game. I see some questions and stuff going on in chat right now. Let's try and breeze through these real quick. So we got Troy for the long term. Do I drop Brandon Cooks or Jonnu Smith for Traequan Smith, Keelan Cole, or Hunter Henry? Also, how do I get rid of Montgomery if he's my running back one? I'm in first with a 5-run record in a 16-player half-point PPR league. Rest of season, not dynasty. Listen, Kinsey, I appreciate you being active in the chat, but this is my show, right? Okay, joking. Kinsey is actually my dynasty league mate, so I can make these jokes. If Montgomery is your running back one, there's no way for you. Let's start there. If Montgomery is your running back one, there's no way for you to get rid of him without getting something, or there's no way for you to get rid of Montgomery and get something valuable in return. It's just not possible, because the perception of David Montgomery has fallen so far from what it could have been this season. So you have to ride the wave. And now, do I drop Brandon Cooks or Jonnu Smith for Traequan Smith, Keelan Cole, or Hunter Henry? I'm keeping Jonnu Smith. You have to. The targets are there. The volume is there. The opportunity in this Titans offense is there. So you have to roll with Jonnu Smith rest of season. And as far as Brandon Cooks or Keelan Cole goes, I'm going to keep Brandon Cooks. And the reason why is because, again, Cooks has been unlocked in this new Texans offense, and I'm really excited about that. And then, honestly, I just trust this Texans offense more than I do Jacksonville, right? Jacksonville's offense is just predicated on playing from behind, whereas the Texans offense is based upon their offense. Like, there's not a whole lot to be said here, right? Deshaun Watson is just a naturally better quarterback than Gardner Minshew, and I'm going to take that offensive upside every single day with Cooks as opposed to Keelan Cole. Cole's been great. I love Cole personally, but I'm going to take Brandon Cooks, who's been literally seeing 9 targets in back-to-back games, putting up great numbers in this time so far on this new Houston Texans offense. Sam asked, I got offered Michael Thomas and Swift for Antonio Brown and Jefferson. Do I take it? Whoa. Swift and Michael Thomas, or Antonio Brown and Justin Jefferson. Oh my God. Sam, I need to know what your other wide receivers are. Brandon makes the good point. He said he sides with Michael Thomas and Swift if you can afford not having Michael Thomas this week. The question that I have for you, Sam, I need to know who your other wide receivers are. And the reason why is because not only do I not expect Michael Thomas to play this week, I also think that there's a chance that he doesn't play next week as well. With the way of how late in the week this injury happened and just what we know about hamstring injuries in total, knowing that they genuinely just slow down a player for weeks on end, I think it kind of caps Michael Thomas' ceiling long term. Just because we've seen injuries like hamstring just come up time and time again for a player. And I'm not too excited about that for Thomas coming off of the high ankle sprain as well, which we've seen guys struggle to come back from. But we don't know when Antonio Brown is going to be. We know what Justin Jefferson is, and we know what Deandre Swift. Oh my God, that is impossible. That is impossible. So I'm going to side Michael Thomas and Deandre Swift. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because of how I value the running back position. As we've seen so far throughout the season, running backs tend to get injured. You can go down the list. Christian McCaffrey, injured. Christian McCaffrey, injured. Dalvin Cook, injured. Leonard Fournette, injured. I know Fournette's not a big name by any means, but let's just use him as the example, right? Running backs are Joe Mixon, injured. Running backs get injured. Miles Sanders, injured. Now they're all coming to me. I value running back depth more than anything. You can ask Brandon Kinsey in the chat right now. I have been hoarding running backs in my Dynasty League just because I like running backs win new championships. It is just how this game is played. There are so few of them, and if you have the best collection, that's how you win. And if this Deandre Swift thing is true, where they're going to involve him more and more, again, 14 carries last week, looked great. Also some work in the receiving game. Deandre Swift could be a league winner. We know what the talent of Michael Thomas is. Hopefully you would have the wide receiver depth in order to take on an injured Michael Thomas at this current moment in time. But I'm going to take the additional asset in Deandre Swift in this case just because I want to see what the upside is. And I do think that the upside for him is going to be so great. Again, he was a second-round draft pick, a highly touted prospect coming out of Georgia, a guy who can do everything. He can be a three-down running back. Yes, they do use a committee in Detroit, but he is by far and away the most talented player in that backfield, and you are going to give that guy the ball time and time again. So I'm actually going to side with that Deandre Swift and Michael Thomas side of the trade if you can afford the hit at the wide receiver position. Let's see. Troy asked again. He has Diggs as your wide receiver 1 and Wilson as your quarterback. Should I package them with Monty for a better running back but for a worse QB and a wide receiver? Troy, can you do me a favor? My Twitter DMs are open. Can you DM me your entire roster? Just screenshot it and send it to me. You can follow me on Twitter. It's right up here. Fantasy Vulture. If you have that, just because that would make things a lot easier. For me, so I can actually see your team and see what your layout is. In the meantime, while you do that, I'm going to get off of this screen. Do I have music on this side? I don't have music on this side. Whoops, that stinks. All right, I'm going back to mute. I need a drink. Alright, do we got any other questions in chat? What we'll probably do, fuck it, we can do this right now. I don't know what screens I've set up, so I have no idea what's about to come up on the screen. Yeah, I got nothing. Okay. So, I went black intentional here. Let me... There we go. I'm still here. I'm trying to... Where's my... Okay. Yeah, so you guys can see I use Sleeper for all of my data. Alright, we are here. I want to pull up my... Okay, I'm pulling up my matchup for the week. So you guys can see what I'm going up against. Again, I like to do this time and time again. Just being able... I have Instagram but not Twitter. That's fine. You can do that. Message me the thing on... Message me your roster on Instagram, Troy. I have my DMs open there too. If you need my, hang on. Do I have my? I don't have it on here, do I? Again, Instagram, FF Vulture, same thing as my Twitter. All right, whoops, there we go. So what I want to do real quick, I want to give you guys the lay of the land for my teams, and this is going to be fun because we are entering crunch time for fantasy at this current moment of time. As I talked about to start the stream, weeks 7 through 11 are critical because that's when bye weeks and injuries start to pile up, and it's also when playoff teams are made. And since that is the case, you need to rack up as many of these wins as possible to put yourself in a position to make the postseason. So this is currently what I'm looking at. I'm 4-2, currently the 1 seed in my division. I'm the 2 seed overall. And who I'm starting this week, it's Ryan Tannehill, Henry, Gurley, Robert Woods, Higgins, Fant, Rojo, Rams defense, and Carlson. I talked about this previously with my kickers. I like to get guys who are on a good enough offense to move the ball, but not a good enough offense to score consistently, just because I've learned that equates to a lot of field goals, and that's kind of the math that I take behind that. Also, we're going to slide this down just a little bit here. You guys can see my bench. It's Allen Robinson, Chark, Debo, Gibson, Jefferson, Swift, Antonio Brown, and Austin Eckler at IR. What happens and who I drop when Eckler comes back from injury, I have no fucking idea at this point. So I'm low-key hoping that he stays on IR as long as possible. And I would love to get him back in the playoffs where I know I could probably have somebody who I'm willing to drop. But at this point right now, I really don't want to drop anybody. If I had to pick one, it's probably DJ Chark, because I want to see what happens with Antonio Brown more than anything. And I know for a fact I can scoop somebody off the waiver wire if I have to later on. But I also realize that I'm at the position right now. All right. Let's go to primary. All right, Troy, I just got your message. I'll flip back in just a second when I'm done with this. So I'd probably end up dropping Chark because I want to see what I have in Antonio Brown. But you guys can see, there we go. Let me pull this back up. But you guys can see right here that I have only 62 fab left. And my plan is to now that my roster is basically set for the rest of the year, I don't want to say, I want to save all 62 just in case something big happens once the playoffs start, so I can easily make sure that I have enough fab in order to get guys that I want. The issue with this league is that there is no real consistency in terms of what guys go for. Some guys go for 8, some guys randomly go for 50, and so I had to spend up just in case to get Swift and Fant this week. I think I spent 30 on Swift and 20 on Fant just in order to have them on this team. Just because, one, I've been bleeding at tight end pretty much all year, cycling guys in and out. Because I had Hayden Hurst, then I had Robert Tanyan, then the bye week cap, and then I lost Tanyan, then I had TJ Hawkinson, and now I finally landed a guy in Fant. And one of the things that's also really interesting to note, if we go to, let's see, where can I go to for the standings? Projected playoff bracket. There we go. So if you go through all 3 of these teams, they basically all have great tight ends. Team Luton has Mark Andrews. I don't even do research, has Kittle. And I'd forget who's tight end. And this team has Robert Tanyan and Evan Ingram. So that's actually one of the teams that I'm not too concerned about. But I understood that if I needed to compete, I couldn't have that disadvantage at the tight end. And I think Fant makes up for it the best that he possibly can. Going for my matchup this week, let's pull this up. And this, you guys, matchup, there we go. Oh no, we're gonna get an ad. Really? There we go. All right, just gotta click out of it. So you can see I got a 58% win probability right here, and I'm projected at 100. My opponent's projected 85. I dodged a bullet here with Darius Slayton, which was nice. on Thursday night, only having 23 receiving yards. Again, I play in a standard format in this league. And the reason why I pivoted from Allen Robinson is kind of because of that fact, right? With Darius Slayton, I always think of my matchups in terms of cross-referencing players. So, for example, it's going to be Tannehill versus Mahomes. Mahomes is probably going to beat me in that matchup. And then between Henry and Gurley going up against Josh Kelly and Zeke, I'm going to side with my guys in that matchup as well. So I know I have the positional advantage there. And then with Robert Woods and T. Higgins, I feel like now, what Devontae Adams does against Houston, who knows? But I know for a fact that T. Higgins is going to beat Jarvis Landry this week. I don't like the only way that he doesn't is if Landry gets in the end zone. But obviously, Higgins has the potential to put up a 100-yard game in this matchup versus the Browns, who have a very, very bad secondary. Tight ends, Hooper's out. That'll be changed by game time. But really, just having Darius Slayton have this kind of goose egg game almost, or just this bust game at the worst, has me really excited because I knew I had that roster flexibility at that point to bench Allen Robinson just in case something bad happens, and I can put in a guy in T. Higgins who kind of has that same floor as Robinson, but may have a higher upside as well in this game versus the Browns, whereas Allen Robinson is going to be followed by Jalen Ramsey all game long. All right, let's go back here. I've done enough talking about for this game, and let's go over Troy's team real quick. Okay. So I'm just gonna read these out real quick. So we got Russell Wilson, Boston Scott, Darius Slayton, Montgomery, Diggs, Gio, Bills defense, Will Lutz. Wait, what is this team? So his format for his league, that's where things get a bit interesting. He also has the Ravens defense, Brandon Cooks, Jonnu Smith, Allen Lazard. So it's very important to note that Troy's format is very, very different than the traditional format that we're used to. His is specifically, why won't Instagram let me zoom? It is a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver or tight end, and then 3 flex, a defense, and a kicker. That is utterly insane. Holy shit. So, looking at this. Okay, hang on. I have thoughts. My first question is, who did you lose to injury to where your first picks? Like, who was your first round draft pick? Like, I don't understand. How do you end up, you start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You start 8 players, and it's the majority of it is flex. Who was your first round draft pick to where you don't, like, what trade did you make? Because there is no Michael Thomas, there is no Aaron Jones, there's nobody with a first round grade here on this team. If you start you said you had CMC. Do you have CMC on this team? Am I missing something? Did you trade CMC? Yeah, and you also had, it's a 16-player half-point league. Okay. So, yes, you absolutely do this deal. You traded him, okay. Let's see. How do I get rid of Alright, so. I mean, yeah, you need to trade. You need some kind of running back. Can you. And because it's a 16-team league, I'm pretty sure that there can't be any real viable quarterbacks on your waiver wire right now. I'm still trying to process this format, man. This is an absolute nightmare. Holy shit. There's Teddy, Derek, and Dalton. Okay. I'm looking. My initial idea is to package Slayton and Montgomery. Excuse me. My initial thought is to package Slayton and Montgomery and just try and get some kind of valuable running back in return. Just because of the way that your waiver wire is currently set up, you do have guys like Keelan Cole on it. Keelan Cole's on it. Brashad Perriman's on it. Corey Davis. Traequan Smith is there as well. So I would look to package those two guys, get back a running back in return. I don't know who would be available to trade in that league per se, like what kind of value you could get back in return. I think making that offer for, I mean, shit, like, does that offer make sense for Myles Gaskin? I think it kind of does. I think that's something you can possibly do. Trying to trade Boston Scott to whoever has Emmanuel Sanders is an interesting idea. You can just try and sell him on the idea of a handcuff. Gio Bernard was an excellent pickup this week. I don't know if you had him previously. But there's definitely room to be made here. If you want to try and package Montgomery and Brandon Cooks, I think that's an interesting option. But you can't, the issue is that you can't flip Montgomery for somebody 1-for-1 because nobody's going to take it. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to try and make that package deal. There's no way you can get Josh Jacobs. I don't think it's possible. Unless you did Montgomery and Cooks for Jacobs, but even then, I don't think I would do that. If I were the Jacobs owner, should I say, I wouldn't do that. Trading Russ is interesting. I'm not entirely opposed to that, especially if a guy like Bridgewater is on waivers. But at the same time, Russ has been so great for you so far this season, and going from Russ to Bridgewater, even though quarterback doesn't necessarily matter in fantasy because there are so many of them. That's just a monster downgrade because of how great Russ has been so far this season. So, what I would do, I would just start making offers around the league involving Montgomery, Slayton, and Cooks and see what you can do. And then because what's going to happen is because you'll trade 2-for-1, you'll have that open roster spot, and then from there you can add a guy, and then from there I would immediately add Keelan Cole, like automatically. Again, he's wide receiver 21 right now in your league, and that's why you need to try and capitalize on it. Montgomery and Wilson for Breeze and Jacobs. Let me look something up real quick. I'm gonna try and verify that this trade real quick. Let's go. I'm looking at his schedule right now. I just don't like Breeze. I like Jacobs, but I don't know if I can do Breeze. Like, Breeze has been utterly worthless so far this season, and I don't know if that's worth it or not. If you can try and get Jacobs, like if you could do Montgomery and Slayton for Jacobs, it's unrealistic. But if you want to try that, go ahead. And then if you have to come up with Montgomery and Cooks for Jacobs, I do think that's interesting. As far as based off what your league format is, just being able to offer somebody that additional wide receiver piece to pair with Montgomery, like you're giving them 2 startable assets in return for 1, and you're getting the best player back in the deal. So that's what I would look to do. Again, just try and play around, just make different offers and see what sticks. I don't know if you're in a league with strangers or if these are your friends. But obviously, if they are your friends, then you can actually just message them directly and say, hey, this is who I have for trade. Are you interested? Or just things like that, and just try and navigate and control the conversation for that league. All right, Passable Hat Rager asks, Rodgers or Herbert this week? Oh my god. Holy shit, let me... Rodgers or Herbert? Wow. God, I'm going with Herbert. I was gonna say Rodgers. I'm going with Herbert, and the reason why is because you don't have a reason to not play him. This is a Jags defense that is bad. They are giving up points to the quarterback. I just had that pulled up. They are giving up damn near 20 points a game to the quarterback position. Where are the Texans at? The Texans give up 20 exactly. Like, they are literally just a hair apart. But not only that, just the way that Justin Herbert has played, it's spectacular. There are no other words to describe it. With Herbert so far this season, right? 25, 16, 25, 29. He's throwing the ball for damn near 300 yards every single game. He's getting into the end zone. The interceptions, it's maybe one a game, so he's not turning over the ball either. It really has been impressive. The cast of weapons that they have around him is spectacular. In fact, they're probably better than the ones that Aaron Rodgers has right now. I mean, shit, and they're at home. I'm probably playing Herbert over Aaron Rodgers this week. It's close, but I'll take the upside with the rookie as opposed to Aaron Rodgers. Again, the over-under for the Packers game is one of the highest of the week versus Houston, so that game could easily be a shootout. I don't think either one is going to hurt you, which I think is nice. So, like, for example, like the variance between Rodgers and Herbert, I don't think it's going to be this monster gap. And so being able to start Herbert and still feel fine about it, right? Like, yes, Rodgers may outscore him, but if he does, it might be by like 3 points. Not enough to necessarily matter. But I'll take the upside in Herbert in this matchup. Again, you got Keenan Allen, you got Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, and that's just a better receiving core than what Aaron Rodgers has in Green Bay with no Aaron Jones, no Allen Lazard. Sure, if you want to throw Marquez Valdes-Scantling out there, whatever, right? But like, who would you rather be throwing to? Devontae Adams, MVS, and Robert Tanyan, or Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, or Hunter Henry. Like, this just makes all the sense in the world. I'm playing Herbert over Rodgers this week. All right, Troy, we good, man? Hopefully I was able to help you. I mean, I'm just still fascinated by this league format. It is utterly bizarre. I've never seen anything like this. If you can get... I'm going to tell you who you should probably target. If you can trade Russ to whoever has Minshew, I think you can make some sort of package deal there, right? So for example, I've been high on Minshew all season long, all off season. Gardner Minshew is currently quarterback 12, so I've nailed this one so far. The value of Minshew isn't high. It's just not. People don't value him. So what you can do, you can trade Russ to the team who has Minshew, get back Minshew, then also get another asset in return. And I think that's the Breeze guy has Minshew. Oh my God. Oh, now we're cooking. If you're able to flip Russell Wilson for Minshew and Jacobs, I think that's interesting. I don't know if you'd be able to do that 2-for-1, all things considered, but maybe that guy loves Russ. I'm just trying to think of undervalued quarterbacks who will never hurt you. Yes, Minshew always has that opportunity to, but again, he's literally throwing the ball 45 times a game, and that's going to lead to 300 passing yards and at least 2 scores. All right, that's not bad. That's not bad. Again, the main issue that I just have with giving these kind of advice, and I am very glad that you did send me your team. I hate not being able to actually like see your leagues, because so much of it is contextual to what other teams have. But I think you do have the pieces to try and make a deal. And honestly, you can trade Jonnu Smith too. You absolutely can. There's no reason. The only reason you should own a tight end in this league, if you are not forced to play one, is if you own Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, or George Kittle. There is not a single reason to own a tight end in this league. Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's no need. It's a public league on ESPN. Yeah, there's not a reason to own a tight end in this league. I would try and flip Jonnu. I would flip Montgomery, and I would flip Slayton. I don't know if I can see if it's a public league. If you want to try and DM me the link, I can look for it, but go for it. Let's see what happens there. But yeah, I wouldn't. There's no need to roster a tight end. It's useless. It's utterly useless because you don't have the upside that you would for a normal wide receiver. It's one of the reasons why I always say that wide receiver is probably one of the least valuable positions in fantasy, because you can start 60 different wide receivers on any given week and probably be okay. It's just that deep of a position. Very, very interesting. Alright. Do I got anything else here for this? I don't think so. We covered everything I needed to. Went for about 2 hours, which was nice. Again, if you missed any of the games, I'm going to be adding them to the description down below at some point. Hopefully, YouTube takes forever to process these kinds of videos, so hopefully this will be processed in some timely manner. But if not, you can just kind of keep jumping around and look for games. I might add the order to the games in the description in the meantime, so that you can just kind of try and pinpoint where the game was talked about. But other than that, I think that's going to do it for my Week 7 preview. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like. Subscribe down below. We are approaching 100 subscribers, which would be super cool to hit by the end of Week 7. And then from there, we'll just try and snowball it into more. Again, thank you so much for watching. Remember, you can follow me on all social media platforms at FFVulture, specifically Twitter or Instagram. I love to answer all of your start sit questions, trade offers, waiver wire pickups, and all things fantasy football related over there. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever, and I will see you in the next video.